Call to order for the Watertown City Council meeting for February 7th of 2022. Please rise while we allow Jody Engels, the pastoral care representative from Prairie Lakes Hospital, to lead us in prayer.
Dear Lord, we ask for your guidance over tonight's council meeting. May the leaders here have a clear vision of the best outcomes and decisions for our community. I ask for your help with COVID, both here in Watertown and across our state, nation, and world, Lord Jesus. Please be with all who are fighting COVID, from patients to caregivers, and may you strengthen the United States as a whole to help be a leader of democracy, freedom, and peace. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Finance Officer Bob Zine, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Bueller. Danforth.
Here.
Pauline.
Here.
Paulson. Shuddy.
Here.
Tupper. Vilhauer.
Here.
Thank you.
Quorum established. With that, the chair will finish his Reese's peanut butter cup. Peanut butter. Okay, sorry. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilman Vilhauer, you have a...
I would like to move, I think it's K now, the Convergent Airport Terminal Project. I'd like to move that to the regular agenda. Just because the dollar amount involves kind of a unique item that we're approving. So I'd like to move that to the regular agenda for some discussion.
Thank you. We will do so. Do we need to place that early or late? Does it matter really on the timing? Okay.
Todd, I believe Todd was going to be
Todd
available.
is on the line, so.
He says that it's on mute, like he can't hear anything that we're saying.
Well, then we will put it near the end. So item K is pulled. Any other corrections or addendums to the consent agenda? Without that, Chair will entertain a motion made by Councilman Paulson, seconded by Councilman Tupper. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll now open it up for public comments. If anyone is here to speak about something city-related that is not on tonight's agenda, now is your time to do so. Seeing nobody come forward, we'll move on to the approval of tonight's agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda by placing item K, which was on the consent agenda, at the bottom of the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Danforth. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item A is an application for a special event retail license to Zeus Incorporated. For more information, we will go to our finance officer, Kristen Bobzine.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an application for a special event license that is going to be with Second Street Station. Dates and times are identified at the Expo building. My understanding is this is for the Pro Pheasant Banquet. Everything was given public notice and the application is complete. If there's any questions, I can try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak about this item, or are there any comments, written or oral, submitted to the council? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and open up for council action. Is there action to approve the application? Moved by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Shuddy. Any questions or comments on this, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item B is an application for a transfer of ownership of a retail wine and cider license from Sushi Jack 18 to Downtown Sushi. We'll go back to our finance officer, Kristen Bobzine.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an application for a transfer of ownership. It's actually the same owner, same location, everything. They did a business name change, and when they did that, they actually changed their sales tax number as well. Sales tax is what ties... Ooh, echo. Sales tax is what ties the license for the alcohol. So with this, we have to transfer the ownership.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. The chair will open it up for a public hearing. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on this issue, either pro or con? Hearing none, I will close public hearing and open up for council action. Do we have a motion to approve this? Made by Councilman Paulson, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Any questions or comments on this, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the transfer of ownership. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item C. Item C is an application for a transfer of ownership of a retail malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license from Sushi Jack to Downtown Sushi. Going back to our finance officer, Christian Bobzine.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the same license, except for this is the malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine. So as I stated earlier, same owners, same location, just the tie-in with the sales tax has to be matching on the license. So any questions, I can try to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair will open a public hearing. Anyone here to speak on this? Hearing none, close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Is there a motion to approve this application? Moved by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Vilhauer. Any questions or comments on this, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item D is the second reading of ordinance number 22-01, an amendment to chapter 24.06, subdivision procedure of the revised ordinances of the city of Watertown. We will go to our community development manager, Stacy Bungard, for more information.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, council members. This is the second reading of an ordinance amendment for our subdivision regulations. It includes some housekeeping items, changing the number of copies and correcting some inconsistencies. It also does change a little bit in terms of it covers what is an administrative change versus what's a change that the Plan Commission would need to see. You may remember at the time of first reading on January 18th, basically the council had weighed in, preferring to keep the drainage location changes under the minor changes, which are reviewed administratively to keep projects moving forward. So that change has been made. It is before you this evening, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilman Danforth. We actually do need a motion first before we. So we will move passage of this ordinance made by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by, was it Councilman Paulson? Okay. Now, Councilman Danforth, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question.
Sure.
I know I spoke in favor of the way it's written now at the previous meeting, but what was it with the Plan Commission that made them feel that that should have stayed as a major change?
Public notice. So if the drainage location or the drainage pond location were to be changing with a development, and the concept plan does get noticed for the public, and neighbors have the opportunity to come and they get letters in the mail, so they are notified. And if the drainage location changes, they felt that maybe that was worth noticing publicly again so the neighbors could have a say-so in the drainage location. From a staff standpoint, I understand that, but I also understand from a staff standpoint, a lot of times you're working with just the general grade of the land, and it would be possible to see a significant change in the drainage location, but it's not highly probable to see that.
Councilman Danforth.
Thank you for the follow-up on that. Is it possible that someone on a preliminary plan like that may have already purchased a lot based on, all the plats and everything going through? Isn't it possible that they may already have purchased a lot? And maybe it's not closed upon, but on an original plan that maybe had the pond over by somebody else's lot and not mine?
It could happen. I think that there are times when they're reserved, so to speak. Nothing has closed upon because there's not a legal description created to close upon. So there may be something that's considered a reservation, maybe perhaps Attorney Roby, if that's okay with Mr. Mayor, could help me on that. But technically, you would not have a fully executed contract or closed on the property prior to final plat.
City Attorney Roby, do you want to add anything? Okay, thank you.
So the,
No, I don't at this time. Thank you.
Mayor, so the developer would know what maybe they've already pre-sold per se, and it would be wise of them to maybe tell them of a change, correct?
That's absolutely
Okay, good.
correct.
That's what-
Absolutely. And the staff wouldn't know what has been reserved. It would only come at the time of final plat, and of course, then we can track the ownership. But
Thank you. Any further
You're welcome.
questions, comments? Council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve this ordinance amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item E is an approval of resolution number 22-03, approving the replat of the Plains addition to the city of Watertown. We'll go back to our community development manager, Stacy Bungard.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a plat here, and I'll pull it up on the screen for you all to see here. This is the location where the Plains Apartments are currently under construction. So it's at the corner of US Highway 81 and 16th Avenue Northeast. We did have a plat that platted this property into one lot. And now the owners would like to plat it into two lots for financing purposes. That's why it's before you this evening, as we already did have that plat that platted it into one lot. And because we had done that plat recently within 3 years, that it has to follow this formal process of coming in front of Plan Commission and City Council. This plat does contain the necessary easements and things of that nature to make the property work, but I understand it is for financing purposes. All the setbacks are met on this plat as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. The chair will entertain entertain a motion to approve this resolution. Made by Councilman Danforth, seconded by Councilman Shetty. Any questions or comments on this? Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Stacy, when the planning commission discussed this, I have to admit I was only half listening. I had it on the background. I mean, originally they were going to come back. They wanted 3 lots. I know planning commission debated this for a long time. Finally reached a unanimous. What was the holdup or the hang up from the planning commission standpoint before they finally approved the 2 lots?
So they actually did approve back on December 9th. They did recommend approval for 3 lots at that particular point in time. Then staff was taking one last look at the setbacks, because you can see there's quite a bit going on this, because this is the actual exhibit showing how they've potentially laid out all of their buildings. We did notice that there was a setback violation.
Okay.
So then the applicant did apply for a variance and was denied for that variance. And so they've came forward with these 2 lots. We figured at this time we would go ahead and present it to the council, as we're decreasing the density of this plat. So we're proceeding on to you for your decision this evening.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the resolution. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item F is a first reading of an ordinance amendment regarding off-street parking and loading requirements. We'll go back to our community development manager, Stacy Bungard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a first reading, as you mentioned, of the parking requirements within the city. This is one of the items that the Plan Commission did identify as a goal about a year ago. So we made a list to cover 2021 and 2022. And I know that Manager Mack does have that list as well. And it's something that we have been working on for a while now. And the Plan Commission did recommend approval of this back on January 20th. And we did have some discussions as well prior to them recommending approval of this particular ordinance. A couple of the primary goals of it is basically to provide for adequate parking and to reduce the requirements to industry standards that we are seeing now that are out in other communities that seem to be working in order to prevent those large, expansive, unused parking lot spaces, but also strengthen the parking lot maintenance requirements and provide clarity on some surfacing requirements. So it's a full update, if you will. It does have some additional uses that were well researched in terms of industry standards that are out there. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I think someone's getting fined up here on the council. We will allow Councilman Tupper. You get to assign Councilman Bueller some sort of fine for that, since you had to sit next to him and you were originally blamed for that. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. Back to the first reading. But it is a good reminder. Please turn off your phones. Any others? I think you're going to lose if you're blaming IT. Okay, back to the first reading. Any questions from the council? Councilman Danforth.
It's really not to the language here, but it does pertain to the ordinance. Is there any restriction for how long somebody can park a vehicle in a public lot?
I believe so. And that's the next one. And I'm going to defer to City Attorney Roby if that would be okay with the mayor.
Please, City Attorney.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Danforth, there is no current or blanket ordinance that governs city parking lots. The next item on the agenda expands on one of our current ordinances regarding no parking signs. And so the thinking is going forward, essentially that ordinance will now allow us to be flexible. So basically whatever the sign says, whatever the official sign says going forward is going to be the rule. And so there's been discussion about a 72-hour limit, for example. So that'll just be put on the sign, and then if somebody violates that, it will be a violation of the ordinance.
Follow up, Councilman?
Well, I just want to state the reason why I asked that question is because I have seen vehicles sit in some of these lots just for ongoing periods of time. And I don't know if it's because there's somebody that's in their vehicle they're incarcerated. I'm not sure what it is, but there are a few of the lots that I tend to drive by reasonably often, and it's some of the same vehicles there over and over and over again. And some of them aren't even cars or pickups; they can be boats or campers. So that's why I asked the question. So,
Thank you. Any further questions, Councilman Vilhauer?
Thank you, Mayor. At the last meeting, we were talking about reserve parking downtown. I believe Councilman Danforth raised a question about, the development going on downtown. Do we have any requirements as far as making sure that there is some parking spaces allocated based upon the tenants that will be living in those places? I see this does add something to that now. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Stacy, if you would?
Sure. I'd be happy to, council member. So this particular, I don't know if you guys can see, I kind of try to highlight it here. I'll bring it up a little bit. This is item 6. And so currently the ordinance just exempts any property that's zone C1 from parking requirements, whether it would be a mixed use, whether it would be a commercial, it's just exempt. The Plan Commission does review anytime you will have 4 residential units or more, the Plan Commission, it's required for somebody to have the plan, rather at the Board of Adjustment, have a conditional use. So that's one of the items that the Board of Adjustment looks at is the parking, but it's a general look because we don't have a standard per se. So it's just a very general look. So right now, item 6 does attempt to bring a bit more into the C1 district for parking requirements. Basically, if you were to have basically everything is exempt except for properties that are going to contain 4 residential units or more, and that's for new construction. And then if you're going to do more than 4 units of new construction, then you would need to provide 50% of the required parking spaces.
So that is for new construction. In other words, the projects already in place or that are already up are grandfathered in.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so the second part of this basically does just that, exempts out existing structures, and those that may be being converted or remodeled to include residential units. So what we wanted to do, and we did receive some public comment on this in accordance with our downtown plan, we didn't want to essentially completely eliminate someone's desire if they wanted to make a couple of units in the upstairs of their downtown building, because there's certainly a lot of those properties, there's just really nowhere to designate off-street parking. So we wanted to allow for some of that infill development in accordance with that plan, with the live, work, and the vibrant community principles. So we wanted to allow for some of that. And then kind of just look at it moving forward with new properties, new development, 4 units or more.
Thank you. Councilman Bueller.
Thank you, Mayor. Stacy, we had this little bit of a discussion earlier today, and I also visited with Brandy a little bit on this issue, you know, and of course, one of my concerns, you know, over the last 20 years, mixed use has grown, obviously, and I think that'll continue to happen in the community, and I just want to make sure we got our bases covered.
Sure.
As far as using, you know, First Camp for parking, you know, where it affects our businesses downtown. And just a thought, and I think I brought this up before, you know, it might be a possibility to look at lease space if we've got something that's adjacent to that particular property. And I don't know, when you're looking at these, if it's conditional use, you're looking at a conditional use permit according to where there's going to be available parking. Is that correct?
Yes, that
Okay,
is one of the things.
So that would come into play. So, you know, possibly it might be worth a look for us for that adjacent parking to have it set up so they could lease spaces in a city parking lot.
Okay.
If it makes sense.
Okay.
Because the big concern I've got is that we are going to, these folks that are living, which God bless them, but they're going to take spaces where we don't need them.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm just going to throw one other thing out on this whole parking thing. I think we're making more of a problem out of this than it really is. I just want to go on record with that. You know, we go through this, seems like every year we talk about parking. And, you know, if it's really an issue, if people are having a lot of problems with it, then yeah, let's deal with it. But I don't think that's the case. And I had somebody bring it to me one day and said, I think it's more of a walking problem than a parking problem in a lot of cases. And I think you'll find a lot of proprietors and certain businesses that park in front on the main drag too, you know, so they're kind of hurting themselves a little bit. But just go on record, that's where I'm at with this. I would hate to see us spend a whole lot of resources on dealing with parking. I think it's great to tighten up our ordinances. I agree with that, but that's where I'm at. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilman Tupper.
I don't disagree with Councilman Danforth's thinking that we need to have some standards for these, but don't you feel, Stacy, that most of them, you know, to market let's say somebody's building an apartment building. In order to make that marketable, they have to have enough adequate parking spaces. They can't build 72 apartments and only have 20 parking spots. So
I agree.
I think that's why a lot of the developments we've seen have gone with underground parking, so.
I absolutely agree from a staff standpoint, because to market those properties, parking does have to be available and somewhat convenient.
I'll save my next comments to the next agenda items, so.
Thank you. Councilman Shetty.
Yeah, just on that note, then, what Councilman Tupper was suggesting too, the project that is on the corner of First and Camp, Crestone Builders, does that have enough parking, adequate parking in their underground parking, or are they going to be utilizing a lot of spots outside on the street?
They will be utilizing some, and I'm trying to remember their parking numbers off the top of my head. They did receive a conditional use permit, and they did provide, I think they would have provided at least 50%. I think it's quite a bit higher than that, but I do believe they would have met this.
And one more quick question. Do you know how many units they do have there as far as apartments go, or?
I can't remember.
Sure.
I can look it
Okay.
up for you, though.
Well, I was just curious, yeah, when we say 50%, does that mean a dozen cars taking up public parking, or 5 or 20? So I just was curious, so.
Sure. Yeah, no, I
Thank
can
you.
look that up for you, and I'd be happy to provide that.
Sure.
I might be able to do it right now.
Well, no, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Danforth.
Thank you, Mayor. Is 50% of the units? Because 50% of 2 people living in 20 apartments is different than 50% of 1 person living in 20 apartments. So is it 50% of the 20 apartments?
Well, we would refer back to the 216302, and so that's where we get into the 1 per bedroom. So it'll take me just a second to find residential. Multifamily is the 1 per bedroom. So it depends on what this says. You know, if you have, 10 bedrooms overall, you're going to need 10 parking spaces, and 50% of that, then you'd have to provide 5.
Any further questions or comments, council? All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Item G is a first reading of an ordinance amendment clarifying the applicability of time-limited parking and to city-owned parking lots. For this, we will go to our city attorney, Matt Roby.
Thank you, Mayor. So as I gave a brief introduction to a moment ago, essentially what this ordinance amendment will do is clarify an existing ordinance. The existing ordinance, which has been in place for many years, essentially said it's a violation of ordinance to park where a sign says you can't park. And so for many years, our no parking signs cited this ordinance. And there has been some interpretation over the last few years that could probably be applied to a 72-hour parking lot or the city lots, et cetera. And that's probably true, perhaps, but we wanted to make it clear in the ordinance. So what this, and just to backtrack a minute, this conversation has kind of been going on in conjunction with the conversation about the downtown public parking lots, preparing some new signage, having a 72-hour time limit in those lots. And that's kind of an ongoing discussion. So this is being brought forward in conjunction with that conversation.
Thank you very much. Open it up for council deliberations. Councilman Tupper.
Could I ask Chief Toomey to come up for a second? I just want to hear his opinion on, I spent about 2 hours with Rob the other day in the street department, and we spent about an hour talking about this particular thing. And if we were to put a 72-hour parking limit on the city-owned parking lots, I want to hear your side of it, because it's got to work for everybody.
Yeah.
How would you guys enforce it, or?
Well, it would probably be based on a complaint process. We're not going to be driving around marking tires in the parking lots, but if we get a complaint, we can then mark the tires and then at least have some clear guidance on what we can and cannot do. I think the ordinance is important because right now we just call the owner and ask why you parked there, can you move it, and without any teeth. So
I look at downtown parking all the time, very underutilized in our parking lots.
Yep.
And I think that we need to work together as a community to educate people. I think there's a few parking lots that we need to spend some money on to make them feel comfortable with parking in there. Maybe some lighting, maybe some re-asphalt or whatever. We're going to get rid of a parking lot. So we need to be able to utilize what we do have. But it's got to be workable for every department. Like I say, I spent 2 hours with Rob, and about an hour of that was talking about parking. And it's got to be usable for him when he's got to clean the parking lot. And it's also got to be usable for your people, to make it, because you can't spend all day marking tires, just like you said. So.
Correct. And I think safety is the major thing, and we have been working with utilities to get the lighting in the parking lots and make them safe. So we're getting there.
Because you've been on the force long enough, you remember when the city, and this is when I was on council before, when they redid and Rob didn't even know it was called that Compesca lot, the one down by the bars.
Right.
When they redid that parking lot looks a lot better every day. I mean, I think a lot of people, a lot of the business owners and stuff took a lot of ownership in it, and they keep it a lot cleaner than what it ever was in the past, so. Maybe part of that's putting cameras in.
Yes, sir.
Any further council questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll close that first reading. Go to item H, a first reading adding an ordinance to chapter 3.05 to the revised ordinances of the city of Watertown prohibiting the feeding of certain wild animals. City Attorney Matt Roby, please illuminate us on this.
Thank you, Mayor. None of the animal control board is here to back me up on this. But no, this, so the, oh yeah, sorry. My apologies. So this discussion regarding this issue started about a year ago, I would say. A representative from the Game Fish and Parks came to one of the animal control board meetings. And at the time there was issues, and maybe there still are issues, but there was some issues with the turkeys, wild turkeys up on the north part of town, where the trees had been removed, etc. And it sounds like, and he kind of recommended, other communities have done, creating a policy or an ordinance that prohibits the feeding of certain of wildlife, essentially, with the exception of songbirds. And so the Animal Control Board, took that under advisement. We did some research. Looked, for example, I looked at Rapid City. They have a very similar ordinance to this, and that's kind of what I molded this based on. But essentially, really, what the goal is not to penalize people. It's really to give the animal control officer a tool that he can point to when he goes out and talks to people if this is occurring. Give a warning. Say, hey, this is not allowed under our ordinance now, just so you know. And then have something that they can refer to if a citation were to become necessary in the future. But it sounds like that issue has maybe subsided a little bit, but other communities I know, Pierre, I think Rapid City, both have had issues with deer in the community and that sort of thing. So anyway, any questions?
So turkeys are not considered songbirds?
They're not.
Yeah, fair enough. Councilman Tupper.
I don't think the problem's gone away, because if you, just a week, 10 days ago, I had a post on my Facebook page of a picture I took of about, I'd say 40, 50 turkeys standing in the Jefferson School right by the door, so.
Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to kind of reiterate what he said, I did kind of ask some questions at the board meeting when this got brought up again, asking if there was any issues. And our animal control officer stated that, most of the issues have come up north of town where those turkeys are located, but they've had some issues with deer, people feeding those. So I do think that this is a warranted ordinance, just so we can maintain it a little bit better and actually have some teeth to the animal control officer saying you can't do this anymore.
City Attorney Roby, if you want to.
I would just point out one more item, just to make sure nobody gets any misconceptions. If you happen to leave a cheeseburger out on your deck or something like that one time, it's not gonna trigger this ordinance. So there's a purposely and knowingly component to this where it's going to be a pattern of behavior that would be recognized by the neighbors, and that's probably what's going to happen is the neighbor will call in and say, hey, my neighbor's been feeding deer on a regular basis. That's probably what would be the genesis of the conversation here.
Thank you. Councilman Vilhauer?
I just want to, not specific to this, but I just want to have a shout out to the Animal Control Board and to City Attorney Roby. That is a tough position to be in. Colin, you sit on that board now. Just last week, Councilman Bueller and I had occasion to sit in as an observer. They deal with some sensitive issues there. When you start dealing with people's pets, there was a vicious and a dog vicious dog and a dangerous dog issue discussed at the meeting last week, and those are not fun topics to be involved in. So I really appreciate the work the Animal Control Board, Beth Manty's had on that for a long, long time. City Attorney Roby's been an integral part of guiding them. So I just want to give a shout out to that Animal Control Board for the work they do.
Thank you. And well deserved. You're right, Councilman Vilhauer. Any further comments or questions, Council? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to item I, authorization for the police department to purchase a replacement 2017 Dodge pickup, which serves as an animal control vehicle. We'll go to our Chief of Police, Tim Toomey.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, thanks. I come before you today to ask for your permission to purchase a new vehicle. It's kind of a story, so I'll tell you. We were operating a 1999 vehicle that for our maintenance. It plows our parking lot. It tows our trailers. It serves many purposes like transporting evidence and things like that. That vehicle recently became unserviceable at the police department, so that put us in a jam. For next year, we have it on the CIP schedule to replace our animal control officer vehicle. So Captain Kirk oversees that our vehicle, our fleet maintenance, and he came up with a great idea to ask for permission to replace our animal control vehicle. We would take the box off of that, put it on the new vehicle, and then transfer his old vehicle to our maintenance vehicle. So essentially, we're getting 2 trucks for the price of one to keep us up and running. So I brought Captain Kirk here with me. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Captain, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think he covered it all. We're fortunate just because we're able to switch all the equipment. That's where the big savings come in for the box that's on the back of the current animal control vehicle, and then the box transferring to the new vehicle. So that's a pretty good savings to the city by doing it now with the current body style.
Thank you. The chair will accept a motion to authorize the purchase of this vehicle. Made by Councilman Schutte, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Open it up for comments or questions from the council. Any council? Finance Officer Bob Zine would like to comment on this.
The only thing that I will add is, Tim did mention it, this wasn't in the 2022 budget, it was in the 2023. So if the purchase is made, just so the council is aware, you'll see it come back for the budget supplement about mid-year. I try to do one in the middle and then at the end. So with this approval, you'll see that. So, okay, thank you.
City Attorney Roby.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I would just also add to put on the record here that this is falling under an exemption to the procurement, the bid laws, because of the nature of how they've had to procure this. It's essentially, it falls under a sole source procurement because they can't find one of these trucks. And so it does slightly exceed the $50,000 bid limit, but I don't know, perhaps they want to elaborate on that a little more as well.
Sure. So just to give you a real quick background, Dodge is no longer, in the next 2 weeks, they're not going to take orders anymore for 2022 models. The soonest we could order one or even try to order one would be July of 23. Our only option here was to find one on a lot somewhere in the United States that would fit the vehicle that we needed. We did an expansive search of about 1,000 miles around Watertown. We actually found one that was this one here that's being delivered to Sioux Falls. To Billion Automotive is the only one we could find. The only way we got this one is that the Dodge directly gave us a list of where they were shipping the last remaining vehicles for the nation, and that's how we found it. So it's they're hard to find.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the council? The motion is to authorize the purchase of this vehicle. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item J is an approval of a professional services agreement with Confluence for construction administration services for the Watertown Foundation Downtown Plaza. For more information, we'll go to our city head engineer, Justin Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an proposal agreement with Confluence to perform construction admin services
for the alley reconstruct project, which is adjacent to the downtown park project. They're adjacent to each other. $54,000 is set aside for the alley project, and the remainder, which is $98,926, is set aside for the Plaza project. Infrastructure design and associate consulting engineers are subconsultants to this contract. And with that, I guess I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve this contract. Made by Councilman Tupper. Do we have a second? Seconded by Councilman Bueller. We'll open it up for questions or comments from the council. Councilman Vilhauer, did you have something to lead off?
Well, I guess I'll vote in favor of this, but I reached out to Justin yesterday or this morning that we've already paid Confluence roughly $150,000 for the design of that project, which is about 6.5, and there might be some more because that's not the end of the because 174,000 roughly was the maximum amount for the design phase. So that's roughly 6.5% of the cost of the project. Now we're going to be approving another 6% roughly of the project cost. We're looking at 12-13% just in design and construction management fees relative to this, which to me just strikes me as being very high percentages. I realize it's a smaller project and those rates are going to be higher, but it just strikes me as being a large dollar amount, or percentage-wise at least, to be paying for this project. So I'll just want to get that noted. But I will vote in favor because I feel like we're too far along to pull the reins in on this. But I do have some reservations about the dollar amount that is being expended for the design and the management of that project.
Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to state that I have the same concerns, with this already being an over-budget project. And now, we continue to spend more. And I guess my question to our city engineer would be, can we not handle this internally for construction staking? And the only reason I ask is in the past, I know that we used to do a lot of construction staking internally, which saved that money that we're going to be spending now for this. So I don't know if it's just a staffing issue or if it just doesn't fit in our schedule.
We certainly could. We have the staff to do it. The thing about it is we are also understaffed, so we have a lot of projects going on, and I worry a little bit about being able to keep up with the contractor. The other part of my concern is that with the consultant designing it and laying it out, I guess I'd prefer that same designer do the construction staking as well.
Thank you. Councilman Danforth.
Was this, I'm going to have a follow-up question too, Mayor, with you, but was this amount estimated originally at the beginning of the project or somewhere prior to now that we had an understanding that we were going to pay $152 for construction management of that?
This is a little higher than what we had estimated with the budget. That's a short answer. The other part of that is we had initially planned to do the alley project in-house, and because all these projects kind of came together all at once, we felt it was better to just have the consultant that was dealing with all the projects just do that alley project as well. So that is an additional cost that we didn't plan.
So what do we get? Let's just say you did the alley project, which you said is roughly 50 of the 152, right? Mm-hmm. Something like that. So let's just round it up to $100,000 for the park administration. What are they actually doing that warrants $100,000? I question that. If you if we pay them $200 an hour, that's 500 hours of work. I really question that is, unless we're paying them a lot more than $200 an hour. How do we justify $100,000? How do they justify $100,000 for that project?
This contract includes site inspection. I believe it's twice a week for 24 weeks, and I think that's about 4 hours every site inspection. There's staking. There's shop drawing review, which is a lot of it. There's some meetings, and in the proposal they actually break down the hours that they estimate. One thing that we're doing with this project, well, we do it with a lot of projects, is this is not to exceed project. So if they don't use all the hours, then we don't pay them. So if they're only on site half the time, let's say, that would be reduced. Does that make sense?
Any follow-up, Councilman?
It does, but the number concerns me, and I guess I'm somewhat with Glenn in regards to finding out where we're at. But I kind of think that number's derived from the fact that it's hard for us to back away from it now a little bit. To be quite honest with you, it just feels like that. That just seems like an atrocious number for that $2-point-some million park. We're going to pay somebody $100,000 just to watch the construction of it, when they've already been the ones to design it.
Councilman Tupper?
If you took the 50,000 out, excuse me, the questions for city engineer, or now I got myself, Justin Peterson. If you took 50,000 out, you got the first phase was 172, you said? Second phase, then we're at 100. What was actually budgeted for those two phases, and how much are we over that budget?
The budget that we had for CA was 90,000, and I believe I wasn't part of the budget for the design part of it.
Any follow-up, Councilman? Councilman Shetty was next in line.
I suppose technically my question was answered a little bit. I was just curious about negotiating this process, but maybe this isn't the type of project where you can do that. There's just hours that they have set, and so that's just how it is, or is there any room to negotiate with this process a little bit?
There is some negotiation. We did talk a little bit about this before presenting it. For instance, if the council felt strongly, we could negotiate, maybe having just once a week site visits, that kind of, those type of adjustments I think we could probably work on.
Okay, thank you, Justin.
Councilman Beeler.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm glad to see. I think Glenn brought up a really good point, and I think this can's been kicked down the road a ways, and I think we don't have much choice here. But I think we need to learn from this and moving forward that we do question, and we do. I mean, we've worked on a number of projects where we've negotiated and tried to get a better deal and to understand the scope of work and what the costs are, up front, we do. And I don't know that this is grossly over what the original budget was, but I do like the idea that we have to question these things, before in the early on process. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further? Councilman Vilhauer.
I guess I want to clarify one thing so we don't make it look like we're throwing Confluence under the bus. As I see this, the lion's share of the hours are actually going to be incurred by infrastructure design groups. So, they're co-op, and there's actually an engineering firm involved too. So I don't want to make it sound like that we're throwing Confluence under the bus, because they've done good work for us in the past. But I just want to clarify that there are actually 3 entities involved in this proposal that we're approving with Confluence now.
Councilman Danforth, did you have something?
well, it's really a comment, an opinion probably.
Which is
and I'm
fine.
going to voice it anyway. This park isn't rocket science. You know, it seems like 90% of what's out there is concrete work. It's I know there's infrastructure to support certain aspects of it, but it seems outlandish to think that we're going to be charged $100,000. Now, I don't know what's going into the engineering that Glenn referenced, but that just doesn't seem like a reasonable way for us to spend tax dollars, in my opinion.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions, Council? Councilman Paulson?
I guess just hearing what the rest of the council has to say is, I would almost want to ask to not approve this one, but ask for a lower price. Because I think, as the other council members have said, some of these fees seem outrageous. I don't know why some of these hours are on here, some of the prices that are coming in. I mean, there's a $1,500 social pinpoint public engagement tool that we're paying for. And I don't know what that is. Like, I guess I don't understand. This just seems really high from an engineering standpoint, from a CA standpoint. That's just my thought. I would ask for it to be renegotiated.
City Engineer Peterson, do you have any comments on that?
That's,
It's okay to say no.
if the council would like, we can negotiate or negotiate some of these hours. I do want to point out that there was some negotiation prior to this. You know, a lot of it had to do with how often they'd be on site, and we could take a look at that if that's what the council desires.
Councilman Danforth.
Would it be worth it, and this is going along with Mr. Paulson's recommendation is, you know, what if we were to either vote this down or defer it or whatever the proper terminology is or procedural is, and then invite them here to talk about it, have them here to talk about it so that we understand if there are questions from our standpoint. It would help, you know, Justin, maybe support you or whatever a final decision is, but just sitting here on this side of this table tonight, that just seems like a very high number. And, you know, I think we need to separate out very specifically what the park is versus the alley, so we clearly understand that, in which you have shared those numbers with us. But maybe that's our best option, is to either vote it down and have them come back and be here when we address it.
The proper motion would be, we already have a motion on the table. We would need a substitute motion, which I would suggest to be postponed to a time definite, which would be the next council meeting, or perhaps, I think that's the only one that would be appropriate, because we can discuss this more at our work session next week.
Yeah,
I
we
know
do
City
have
Manager
a
Mack
work
would-
session scheduled for Tuesday. We could ask Confluence to participate and answer any questions then, so you'd be ready for potential action on the 22nd.
The chair would entertain a substitute motion to postpone decision upon this item until the next council meeting, which would be February 22nd? February 22nd. Motion made by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Tupper. It's appropriate, I mean, I think that we're all in agreement, but any comments on this?
I got one, Mayor,
Councilman
and
Tupper?
that's probably more general whenever we're looking at a project like this. You know, that's a lot of money. Why isn't anybody from Confluence here? Should we require that, not only from them, but from any organization that's bidding that size of project? Because it seems like we always have a lot of questions. So, I mean, in all fairness to them, just like Glenn said, it's not just them, you know, so they're not here to defend themselves neither. So I think it'd be great for both sides to make sure that they're here in 2 weeks, so.
It's a very fair comment. Any further comments on the motion to postpone? With that, the motion is a substitute motion to postpone decision upon this item until 2 weeks from, well, the next council meeting. All those in favor of postponement, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item L is approval of a golf operations supervisor position. K. Oh, sorry, K, sorry. Item K is authorization for the city manager to sign all necessary documents with BNSF, which is Burlington Northern Santa Fe, and allocate needed funding as necessary for the 3rd Avenue roadway reconstruction project. For more information, we will go back to our city engineer, Justin Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is to authorize the city manager to sign some agreements with BNSF Railroad. Speaking with BNS, we're doing a 3rd Avenue project that's crossing the railroad, and every time you deal across the railroad, you have permits and easements and other agreements that need to be in place, and this is just authorizing City Manager Mack to sign those agreements as they come in. We do expect to have what's called a temporary occupancy permit, an easement, which might have a cost. We don't know that cost yet, and then an agreement for improvements on the railroad.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to authorize the signing of these documents. Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Open it up for council comments or questions. Councilman Tupper.
This is pretty standard procedure, I take it, whenever you're working, like you say, with the railroad. And there is no idea what those costs would be on, or an estimate, nothing. I mean, I'm just, if you don't know, that's fine. I mean, that's.
I don't know at this time.
Okay. They're probably not a significant amount, I wouldn't imagine.
I don't know. Railroads are historically very fun to work with and do a great job, I'm being sarcastic, of getting information to you in a timely manner. So we're kind of in a spot where we don't have an option to not do this work or move forward. But as we learn what costs are, we will certainly keep you apprised of that.
Okay, thank you.
Don't you know it's sarcasm when you hear it? Any further comments or questions? With that, the motion is to authorize the signing of these documents. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now on to item L, an approval of a golf operations supervisor position. We will start with our city manager, Amanda Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. We are coming to you after a culmination of several months of discussions around the municipal golf course. As you know, historically, we have had really 2 different sets of operations out there. We've had the inside, so the clubhouse, the lessons, things like that, that have been managed by a contract employee. And we've had the outside, which is the greens and the upkeep and the maintenance, which have been managed by a city employee. There seems to be some challenges with that structure in providing the best course that we can to the community. So we believe that a way to remedy that is to create one position that oversees both the internal and external operations of the golf course, which is what you have before you. We have had this graded by our consultant, and they've recommended a grade 170. When Terry Kelly, our Parks Director, and Kristen Bobzine, our Finance Officer, worked the numbers from our current situation where we are contracting out a portion of it and internal another portion versus all employees being city employees, it's really a wash and actually an opportunity for future growth with revenues with having our golf operations supervisor really managing the clubhouse and the sales and the revenues there. I think it's the right move to try and rein in our golf course, and it's wonderful as it is, but we could certainly be a lot better. I think there's a lot of excitement around this. So with that, I would entertain any questions you might have, and Terry Kelly is also here if you have questions for him.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve this position. Made by Councilman Danforth, seconded by Councilman Bueller. Now open it up for questions or comments. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Amanda, what does this mean going forward for those two positions that are currently there?
So we would no longer have a contract employee. We would move Levi into the golf operations supervisor, and Todd would continue to be, I'm going to get his title wrong. He would continue to do his current superintendent. I'm sorry, I've talked about a lot of different positions today. He would continue to be the superintendent. They would work in tandem. One of the challenges that we really face with Levi as a contract employee is our contract employees can't manage city employees. And so there's this sort of break there in communication. It's not, nobody's doing anything wrong, it's just the way that the system is set up, and we think that this will help improve that.
So Levi will manage Todd?
Correct.
Okay. That's where I didn't know if we were still going to have two managers. Or
Yeah, and I mean, and those are the current people, right? Those could change in the future if somebody decides to leave or retire or whatever. But that would be the structure. The golf operations supervisor would manage the superintendent.
Yes, the positional hierarchy doesn't change. It's not unique to these two individuals. It's just something done because we believe it's in the best interest of the golf course going forward. Councilman Tupper?
Maybe a question for TK. Do you see a lot of inefficiencies the way it's run right now, and where this will correct a lot of that? I can see where, like with one guy cannot manage city employees, but they're there.
Right.
Just a moment, Park and Rec Director Terry Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. To address that, overall, are there inefficiencies? Yeah, I don't think we'd be here tonight if there weren't. This is an ongoing evaluation. We talked about it 3 years ago at the completion of the last term of the contract. And to nobody's fault, the inefficiency, Manager Mack hit it perfectly. It's just without control, like the inside really, by letter of the contract, couldn't really communicate very well with the outside. And that puts a lapse in how are we doing things. The feedback from the player is difficult to transform to the superintendent setting up the course. I played a lot of middleman. That's an inefficiency. Not being on site, an email from one, now you represent that idea to the other, get the feedback, represent it back to the other side. So yeah, that's the biggest thing, is just the inability to really approach it as a team. And I think Manager Mack explained it well, but I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, I think
Tupper.
that's kind of what I was getting
Right.
at, I guess, and that's kind of
Right.
what some of the past, I'm not a golfer, so I never get out there, but I mean, just talking the street, a lot of it's just, seems
Right.
like I don't want to say a squabble, but,
Right.
which is going to create inefficiencies, so.
And there are, and with the golf course enterprise, a lot of it's opinion managed.
Yep.
What I think a green should look like is different than this person. And really, we had multiple ideas, so which one is correct?
So
And I think
I
this
think I'm-
eliminates that.
I think I made a comment to Amanda or Reed one day that I think they said they were taking out some trees. I said they need to take them all out because I keep bouncing off them, so.
I think we're gonna need some helmets in the fairways after as many we took out, so.
Helmets in the fairway?
Yeah, have you seen me tee off?
Okay.
It's a safety thing. You wear a helmet when I tee off next year.
Okay. Councilman Danforth.
Well, I really have a long-standing agreement with the direction that Amanda and the staff are going with this, and what I hope we approve here tonight. Personally, I moved here in 1984, and I belonged out to the municipal golf course most of that time. And in my opinion, since 1984, we haven't managed it right. I think this is our best move to move in the direction. I think the previous best move was hiring the two people we did out there. I think they've done an outstanding job overall. The difficulty is sometimes they have different opinions, they have different ideas, and the left hand doesn't communicate to the right hand very well. And the one that really gets caught in this is the members or the golfers. They kind of get caught up into it. So I think this is an outstanding move for us to go to, and I'm positive that the best outcome is going to be with our golfers. And I think we're going to see people that are going to understand better what's going on out there and why it's going on, and we're going to have all of our people shooting in the same direction on the same page and understanding it. And we haven't had that for a while. So this is, in my opinion, and I don't know who all golfs on here. I know Bueller used to golf, not very well, but he did. And it is the right thing for us to do, and I'm excited for this direction. So,
I got one other comment.
Councilman Tupper, well, actually, would anyone else like to speak before Councilman Tupper speaks a second time? Councilman Tupper.
I just, like I go back to the efficiency part of it, and I get some of Mike's comments where it's going to be better for the golfer, and the golfer is the community person, and I think that's what we got to look out for. Whenever you get a contract person, and I'm not pointing no fingers at anybody, what's the first thing they're going to look for is the betterment of themselves. Now, by putting them both in they both got the end goal in mind. What's best for the golf course, what's best for the citizens of Watertown, because they're both working for the same people now.
Any further comments or questions? Finance Officer Bob Zine?
I don't remember if it was was anything with the position discussed in terms of needing a budget supplement with the purchase of some of the other things that the contractor did. I just think the council would like to have that information too on top of the position.
Permission.
Director Kelly?
We don't have the final number, but what that involves is some of the equipment that's currently out there is owned by the independent contractor, which obviously we will get a lot better deal on the dollar by purchasing from that. We do not have an identified list. Let's say it may be a point of sale screen for the food and beverage. It may be a freezer that we would now have to purchase on behalf of the city, and it will be, pennies on the dollar from we'd pay new. But those numbers may come before you as a supplement, as budget as a whole, and Manager Mack talked about it. It really is. Chris and I spent some ample time running numbers, getting Pearson Golf Management's operational the last 3 years, accounted figures, audited figures, and placing those in. So bottom line to the city is really to our benefit. I think it's about 10, 20,000 the city will come out on a better end, but we will need to come back because we will need to supplement the budget because what we approved in 2022 does not account for the temporary staff to run food and beverage or the salary actually placed in the O&M. So the revenues will offset that, but I think Kristen, midway through the year, probably this one on the end, because we'll need to see that whole seasonal operation of what that bottom line number looks like. But it should not come by any means at an impact to anything from the general fund or the park and rec unrestricted cash. So, and Kristen, if you want to touch on that.
No, that was just tied in with this position. Then the budget will need to be supplemented because of some of the changes to the operational. But I think otherwise, that's just it.
Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you, Terry, Director Kelly, and Manager Mack for, look, this is long overdue as far as I'm concerned, and it'll certainly it'll definitely be easier for you, I think, in the future. But no, this is a move that needed to be made a long time ago, and just want to say I appreciate all the work you folks did. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the new position. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're on to item M, which used to be item K off of the consent agenda, which is an approval of the proposal with Convergent for the airport terminal project in the amount of $231,519.52. We'll go to our airport manager, Todd Cider.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is for security cameras and security door locks for the terminal building. We have a phase one in the amount of $173,915.64. And then the parking lot, as you recall, phase two is in the amount of $57,603.88 for a total contract amount of $231,519.52. This was a budgeted item from the start. The reason it's in front of you today is Convergent wants a contract for this, and since this is all city money, this is why it's before you today. With the security cameras and door locks, the door locks are actually a two-way identification door lock, which if we ever went to a full security program here, which we're growing rapidly, as we all know, I would guess within a few years, the Transportation Security Administration is going to make us go to a full security program, which this would be a necessity at that point. We're trying to kill two birds with one stone.
Thank you, Airport Manager Cider. Chair will entertain a motion to approve this contract, or approve this proposal. Moved by Councilman Villauer, seconded by Councilman Bueller. And open it up for council comments or questions. Councilman Villauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Todd, a couple questions. So this was never bid out before. This wasn't part of any kind of original bid package. So this is the first time that we've seen this now, correct?
That is correct, because this is all city share money.
Okay, that was my next question. And this is 100% paid for by the city, right?
That is correct. This is part of our $5 million we budgeted for the terminal project as a whole.
Okay, thank you.
So this isn't extra money. This is already budgeted. The reason, like I said, the reason it's before you is because they want a contract for these items. Therefore, we bring it to you for City Manager Mack's signature.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the proposal. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Councilman Villauer.
Say, as long as we've got Todd Cider on the line here, Todd, you want to update us or the public as far as what I think you made a press release last week about our latest interline agreement, because that's a big deal for us. So you want to take it away and explain what's happened recently?
Thank you, Councilman Villauer. Yes, absolutely. It's a huge announcement for Denver Air Connection. They have received word that they are going to get an interline agreement with American Airlines. What that means for the general public is you'll be able to, after I believe March 1 is the time that the American Airlines agreement goes into effect. So March 1 and beyond, you'll be able to go to united.com, and you'll also be able to go to americanairlines.com and book tickets from Watertown. So it opens up a whole new spectrum of another major airline in Watertown.
Thank you. I know that is probably going to make so many people happy. So many people that I talk with, it's the one thing that was missing from our great service out at the airport. So it'd be fantastic. Thank you, Councilman Villauer, for mentioning that. That's a great segue. That ends tonight's agenda, but it's a great segue into old business. Any old business? Any new business? Any liaison reports? Any announcements? City Manager Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to remind everyone that we have a work session scheduled for Tuesday, February 15th at 4 p.m. in the Public Works Conference Room.
Thank you. Head Engineer Justin Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I like last week, the South Dakota chapter of the American Concrete Paving Association awarded the City of Watertown with the 2021 Concrete Paving Award of Excellence for the 10th Avenue project. I just want to recognize Marcy Luno as our city manager, Civil Design Inc. as a consultant, and then Timmons Construction was the contractor. So that's
Nice.
cool.
Yeah. And where will that be up at?
We'll find a spot.
Oh yeah. Let's not rub that wound. City or Councilman Villauer.
I believe our finance officer has an announcement to make tonight, correct, Kristen?
Thank you, Councilman Villauer. Currently, the projection for the sales tax we need to speak on that. So the first and second penny is looking like we're just under a 12% increase from last year. So that's a very, very solid number. So
And we budget what for an increase?
usually about 3 to 4%. So that is very good. So yes,
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
yes.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Yeah, I believe that would be appropriate. City Manager Mack.
For those of you that were unable to attend the employee awards event on Saturday night, I'd just like to share with you that we did give out a handful of awards. We recognized our retirees and our employees with multiple years of service, but we did give out 6 individual awards. Our Rookie of the Year was Carla Hoyer. The Creativity Award went to Justin Peterson. Mentor of the Year went to Chief Tim Toomey. Caregiver was Officer Logan Crown. I don't have my notes in front of me. Our 1 in a Million award went to Mitch Halling, and our Employee of the Year was Matt Roby. So thank you all for your work. Thanks everybody who's able to make it.
Any further announcements? We do have need to go into executive session tonight for contractual and economic development matters. We do not expect to take any action coming out, so the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn and move into executive session. Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Schutte. All those in favor of moving into executive session, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?